live. This is the song that I sing when I'm going live, and now it's telling me that I'm live. Yeah. So, hey there. How's it going? Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching this. And without, dilly-dallying too much, I'm just gonna get right into it today. So, just to kind of preface this whole week, I'm gonna be on here at 12 noon every day talking about a different topic that it pertains to songwriting. I reached out to everybody on the Facebook asking about what their biggest frustrations were with songwriting, and I got an overwhelming response back. Is great. Every time I do this, I always get a lot of feedback, which is awesome. And I wanted to kind of zero in on some of the most commonly shared topics amongst everybody and talk about each topic in a quick little 10-minute live stream every day. So if you are watching this live, thank you for joining me. If you are seeing this on the replay, or if you don't have time to watch this live right now, I've actually put together a little PDF talking about all 10 points that I'm going to be covering this week. And you'll be able to find that in the link in the description. So you can grab that for free if you're into that sort of thing. So but that said, let's get into it. So today, actually, we're going to be talking about lyrics. And yeah, I've got a few pages of notes on this, just, having my own thoughts on all this. But the, there are so many different, perspectives on the struggle when it comes to lyric writing. And I related pretty much with everything that everybody said. But again, just to narrow down like the most common things I want to talk about today, um, writing lyrics from the perspective of somebody who already has music written, but they don't know how to write lyrics on top of it. And I also want to talk about writing lyrics from scratch, just completely starting out with like an idea that you have, and maybe you want to build on it, or maybe you don't even have an idea at all. And then want to talk about things like, what was it? What was the other one? I had it. I've been writing all day. I apologize. I am like super tired this morning. Oh yeah. So this is one that kind of hits home for me too. It's like people are self-conscious when writing lyrics and they feel like it's too corny or too cheesy or too dramatic. So I want to talk about all of that today. And again, I want to do this for about like 10 minutes. So I want to make sure it's like action packed with stuff, and hopefully I don't rant too much. So starting with, I wanted to start with having music written, but feeling like you have nothing to say, right? And this is great. So right off the bat, if you already have music written, that's a huge win in my opinion, because whether it's a riff or a chord progression or a fully fleshed out song, it doesn't really matter. You've already established a specific mood or a specific tone with the music, right? So that's great. Whether you're paying attention to that or not, it's important to know that. Like if you've written something, if you've written a riff or something like that, that came from a feeling somewhere, right? So I think it's important to start exploring what that feeling is and what the root of the feeling is. So, to be more specific, like let's say I wrote, like a metal riff, right? Which happens often. And the emotion that's often associated with these types of riffs is some form of like either it's anger or it's passion or it's conviction or it's just intensity of some kind, or it could be like motivation, whatever it's going to be. But as a guitar player, it is much easier for me to express my feelings through my instrument, my primary instrument, at least the guitar. It's much more natural to express my feelings through guitar than it is to, communicate it verbally, just because it just cuts right to the heart of the matter, right? That's why we play music. It just conveys what you're feeling instantly. Whereas, if we're trying to explain that to somebody else verbally, it can be very complicated. But back to the whole thing of like you have the music written, right? It's already telling you what you're feeling, right? And feelings in one way or another are kind of like messengers of a sort. Like they show up to tell you something, right? That's what emotions are. They're messengers. So getting to the heart of what that actually is, in my opinion, is the first step. So if you have like an angry sounding riff, right? Start writing down, the things that make you angry. Like, it could be anything. Just write down anything. In fact, I think I'm stealing from a quote from, I think it was a Tim Ferriss podcast. I forget the writer who he was quoting. So if anybody knows, definitely let me know in the comments because I totally do not remember. But basically, the question was, what do you do when you get writer's block? And the writer responded with, I write about what makes me angry, which I think is great because it's like, it's easy, right? It's easy to be angry. It's easy to like to immediately talk about what's bothering you or the negative aspects of things just because it's kind of hardwired into our survival software, right? Like, even if everything's fine, even if we're safe, even if it's like a beautiful day out, we are still kind of hardwired to find something to complain about, or even more accurately, find something that's wrong, whether it's like, traffic jam or like, any little thing. Like, our brains are designed to look for flaws because that's part of our survival software, is we're trying to like look for any potential dangers or anything like that, right? So looking for what you're angry about, writing about what makes you angry can be a great first step in starting to get these ideas about, right? Because you could just go full out and just write about what makes you angry and nothing else, or you can explore other options with it. In fact, I had I was working with a private coaching client of mine, and he suffers from hemophilia. He's a hemophiliac, and he was writing this entire I think it was like a 4-song EP, maybe it was a 7-song EP. But it was an entire EP based on being a hemophiliac and all of the emotions that are associated with it. So for him, it was very natural to gravitate towards, writing about the frustrations and the anger and all of the negatives of hemophilia. And, you know, it was what was immediate in his attention, is what he could immediately see. So he didn't really take the time to look around that to see if there was anything else to write about for that particular subject. So in us working together, we figured out a way to finally start discovering, the other side of that. So for example, I started asking him to write everything down associated with the feelings that he felt when talking about his condition. And I called it the low hanging fruit. We were looking for the low hanging fruit of the subject matter. So it's kind of like, yes, I feel anger, I feel sadness, I feel frustration, I feel, all of these things. And then we started talking, and I asked him about like, well, is there any is there anything positive about this? Because I truly believe that like the positive aspect of anything can be found if you just look for it, right? I feel like it's always there. It's just way harder to see sometimes. So after doing some brainstorming, he realized that living with this condition made him a more compassionate person because he was able to kind of empathize with others who were struggling with a disorder of their own, or just having more understanding for people in general that have struggles. And it was a huge breakthrough. And we wound up just kind of like, going back and forth and exploring other emotions and other ways to like look at one subject and try to even flip the whole perspective. And what was cool is he wound up writing a song that was initially from the first person, but then became about somebody else, where he put all of his ideas into, which I think is amazing. And he wound up finishing everything, and it's awesome. And my point with all this is that to get the gears going, right? A suggestion would be to, go for that low hanging fruit, right? Like, just go for what is easily attainable in your immediate, thought process, but write it all down. Like, that's the important thing, is to just not have it trapped in here. So write everything down, write the feeling that you have, that if it's a riff that you wrote that makes you, that it like feels angry, right? Like, write down anger, and then write down a bunch of different words to describe anger, and then ask yourself, are there any experiences that I have in particular that link to this feeling that are, popping out immediately? This could be like your own like, self-therapy session if you want it to be, but you can take it from there, and then you could start be like, all right, so here are all the words associated with this one feeling. Is there a is there a picture in my head when I get this riff? Or is there a picture in my mind when I think about these feelings or this topic? Um, is there a particular color to it? Like some of us out there, like myself included, like we see particular colors when we hear riffs or music or key signatures or anything like that. Like what kind of a color does it have if you're like me or anybody like that? Write all this sort of stuff down. Some of it might not work at all, but the point of all of this too is just getting it down on paper, because now you're clearing out that mental space for the gears to kind of start running. And things will show up as a result, I promise, just by doing this. But okay, just to reel it in a little bit, because I'm already like past 10 minutes. All right. Jeez. There's so much more I want to say about this. Um, so, step one is, if you already have music written, right? What's the mood of the music? Right? Determine that. And then from there, write about that mood and see if you can draw any personal experience associated with that mood, any personal stories, situations, people, anything like that. Write as much as you can about that. And then consider exploring the other side of those emotions. If they're negative emotions, explore what the positives are from that. Was there anything that was learned from the experience? What are you trying to say with all of this sort of stuff? Like, but just get it out on paper as much as possible. Okay. So that's if you already have music. Obviously, the same thing can be done without music. You just need to know, like, okay, if you have a feeling that you want to write about, you apply the same thing where it's like, well, what is, if you want to create, lyrics out of thin air and you have a subject matter in mind, like you want to write about, um, I had a student that I was working with. She was writing about um, feeling worthless, like the subject of worthlessness. And again, we use the same technique of brainstorming, like, well, what does that look like to you in your mind? Like, do you see anything with this? Do you see any imagery with this? And she would even say stuff of like, yeah, I feel like I'm in a dark room. And I was like, wow. So it's like, let's go even deeper. Like, are there windows in this dark room? What color is it? Is it black? Is it dark blue? What kind of dark? And like just getting really descriptive. And even if it's not used, it's starting to just get you out of your own head in thinking that you need to have an end result already mapped out. That, I think that's the main thing that trips people up with writer's block, is that they go into it with like, okay, today I'm gonna have something be done, or I'm going to finish this song, or it's going to be about this. And these exercises are more about like allowing you to get out of your head and get out of your own way so you can allow whatever is in you to show up instead of you trying to make it show up. Hopefully that makes sense. So, in a nutshell, just write it all down. That's basically it. And actually, I wanted to comment on a couple of things. There's so much to talk about that, I don't have time for today, but I hope this is helpful for you guys. If you have any more questions about this, definitely let me know in the comments, because I love talking about this stuff. I could talk about it all day, but there's definitely going to be plenty of topics in the PDF. So grab it, link in the description. There's a bunch of stuff. And then feel free to reach out if you have any more questions about that too. Choke. Anyway, yeah, there was one more thing I was going to say about, yeah, like there was a lot of comments about, being self-conscious about the lyrics like that people write being corny or cheesy or all that. And I think it depends on the genre, right? Like, uh, I'm grossly paraphrasing, right? And I'm speaking from the perspective of a guy who loves heavy metal and all that sort of stuff. So take that for what it is. But depending on, the genre, I think if you mean what you say and your delivery is honest, like it's going to translate, it's going to resonate. Joe Duplantier from Gojira, the lead singer, he talked, and I'm paraphrasing about what he said, but he said that some of the lyrics that he writes could be considered a little cheesy, but as a listener, as a fan, whenever I would hear it, it was kind of like I could tell from the intent, and the emotion of his delivery that like he believed everything that he was saying, or at least he made me to believe that. Like it was just a very believable performance. And if you own whatever you're writing, like if that's something that you're really like, you know, if you believe in it and you mean what you say, that's going to come through in the performance, right? You just have to own it. And if it is too cheesy, then, go back to the drawing board and use, whatever apps that you're going to use to revise that, or any kind of, dictionary or thesaurus or rhyming dictionary or anything like that. Um, and in fact, I have a whole list of apps that I'm going to, you know, demo for an upcoming video down the road. So that'll be a good excuse for that. But yeah, use a thesaurus. Rhymer's Block is a good one. I think that's a cool app. I'm trying to think about other ones, but really any run of the mill rhyming dictionary will work. Anything like that. If you have a Mac, I have this little dictionary app on my computer. It's great. I use that all the time. So you know, I think no matter what, when we're writing, we're always trying to compare ourselves to something that we've got in our mind, some kind of standard, right? And I think for the most of us, it's an unconscious thing where, like, when I was a kid and I was starting to learn songs and all that, I was like, this has to be on par with the new Lamb of God record. And subsequently, it sounded like a ripoff of that at the time because that was what my influence was, right? But I had such high standards that I think it yielded some positive results, but at the same time, I was like torturing myself too. Um, so I guess being clear about what you're comparing yourself to and like what your standard is very helpful as well, as far as like being a north star for your process. Anyway, so I'm over time. I thought I could do it in 10 minutes, but I did it in almost 20. But again, I hope this was helpful for you guys. Definitely let me know in the comments. And again, if you're just catching this just now, I am put together a PDF talking about all of these topics that I'm going to be covering this week. You can find that in the link in the description. It is free. It is my gift for saying thanks to you for joining me in whatever, time that you are catching this. But definitely let me know. If more of you are showing up throughout the week, I'll leave it open for questions. So be sure to leave one in the comments. I'll be checking comments afterwards. And yeah, I'm going to go get more coffee though, because I think I need it. It's Monday. Anyway, thanks for watching. And for anybody who's interested in jumping on one of these tomorrow, I'm going to be talking, I don't know which topic I'm going to be talking about, but just to give you an idea of like the whole rundown of everything, I'm going to be covering everything from obviously lyrics today, right? But everything from lyrics to melody to riffs to inspiration to consistency, finishing songs, originality. Originality is a huge one. So I'm going to be talking about that this week. Song structure, arrangement, recording, time management, writing hooks, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to do my best to make it concise and clear as much as possible. And your feedback is greatly appreciated. I keep choking while I talk. Blech. But it's appreciated. So definitely let me know. And I hope this was helpful. I'll see you tomorrow.